Hi! So, I've been meaning to make this series for a while. In fact, I made a trailer for this series ages ago! But tomorrow, as I'm filming it, today, hopefully, as you're watching this, is William Shakespeare's birthday. So I thought this is the right time to resurrect this, hashtag share your Shakespeare. So for those of you that have no idea, Shakespeare Simplified was my idea of essentially going through each of William Shakespeare's plays, maybe some of the sonnets, maybe they don't necessarily need it that much. Anyway, going through each of William Shakespeare's plays and simplifying the language. I debated so much about which play should be first, so at the end of the day, in a very selfish decision, I've decided to go with my favourite. So the very first, Shakespeare Simplified, maybe the last if I never get around to doing a second one, but hopefully not the last. First is Much Ado About Nothing. Much Ado About Nothing is my favourite Shakespeare play. I've been in a production of Much Ado About Nothing, directed by one of my best friends. Thank you very much if you're watching. Thank you for including me. It means a lot. But yeah, it's a really, really funny play. It is a comedy, so something we need at the moment. Nice lift the roof. I don't know what that was. Let's just go with it. So let's get into it. I have got my laptop here, hence why I might be looking down on occasion. I do know the play, but I have written down what the points so I don't get sidetracked or miss entire scenes. Which I did when I was writing and had to go back and remember and just go, oh yeah, that scene happens there. So I'm just going to be looking down here on occasion. So let's get into it. Don't know why I did that. That was very bad. I'm really sorry. Anyway, the play has started, and at the start of the play we open in a house in Messina. The house is owned by Leonardo, and please excuse me for the overpronunciation of that name. I was in a production of Much Ado About Nothing, as I previously mentioned, and in that production Leonardo was played by a woman, therefore was Leonata. So I might accidentally say Leonata on occasion. Never mind! So Leonardo gets informed via messenger that there is a group of men, Don Pedro, who is a prince, and his men. They're coming back from war and they're going to stay at his house. Brilliant! Great! He's honoured by the fact that a prince chose to stay with him. They've already stayed at the house on the way to the war, but now they're coming back. So they're going to stay at the house for a little bit, just to have a little bit of a boogie. So Hero is over the moon. Hero is Leonardo's daughter. And she is over the moon because there is a man called Claudio in the company, and she really likes him. As I mentioned, they already stayed there on the way to war, and on that occasion, they started getting a little bit of a crush on each other. So she's excited to see him again. And also, he's done very well in the war. He's got quite a lot of honours, according to the messenger. So Leonardo's going, hey, yeah, she's picked a good one there. On the flip side, Beatrice, Leonardo's, I was going to say daughter, no, Leonardo's niece, Beatrice, Queen of Sass and Queen of My Heart. She is one of the best characters in all of Shakespeare. Fight me on that. I love her character so much. She is a bucket list character for me to play if I ever have the opportunity. So she isn't very happy that they're coming. First off, she's not really interested in getting married or having a frisson with a guy. She doesn't really care. And she's very, very upset because there's a man called Benedict in the company, and they are a bit like chalk and cheese. She thinks he is the epitome of the second half of his name. So, so she has a little bit of a go at him via the messenger, basically setting up the fact that, no, she doesn't like him. We don't know at this point whether he doesn't like her, but it's inferred. In fact, Leonardo mentions that whenever they get together, there is a merry war that goes between them. Make of that what you will, but you don't have to wait long because the men have arrived. So after the pleasantries are all done, after they're going, how long are you looking to stay here, Don Pedro? And I'm looking to stay here a month if you will let me. All of that, after all that's simmered down a bit, Benedict makes a joke about Hero's parentage. Doesn't go over that well. C-, Benedict, not one of your best jokes. Not one of your worst ones either. Could do better. But Beatrice is there, on hand, to put him down a peg or two. And thus begins what me and my friends have lovingly called the sass-off. They are full on just playing Wimbledon with little, like, sassy comments between each other. God keep your ladyship still in that mind, or some gentleman or other shall escape a predestinate scratched face. Scratching could not make it worse than 'twas such a face as yours were. This helps prove the fact that they don't like each other. And Beatrice is the queen of sass. So after that little interlude, some more characters are introduced, including Don John. Don John is a bit of the Loki of the piece, to use that term. He just likes causing mischief. After the little congregation has dispersed, Claudio pulls Benedict aside and basically says, I've got the hots for Hero. I really, really want to be her boyfriend. And Benedict basically goes, no! One of the easiest ways of describing, if Don John is Loki, best way of describing Benedict is a little bit like Tony Stark, Barney from How I Met Your Mother, that type of character. He's very happy being single, he doesn't want to settle down, he likes sleeping with girls. Don't get me wrong, he likes finding a young squire, young man, hold on, and having him as a wingman. So the idea that his wingman is in love with a girl, he's a little bit bereft. He doesn't like the idea of him swanning off with someone else and leaving him to find another person to go drinks with. But Don Pedro, the prince, realises those two are missing from the partying. So he enters the stage again and is like, hey guys, why are you still here? And Benedict's like, you'll never fucking guess what. This guy's in love with Hero. And Don Pedro's like, brilliant! Brilliant! You're great, she's great, it's gonna be amazing! Claudio's a little bit shy. Doesn't really know how to woo a woman. So Don Pedro's like, don't worry, I got this, being the amazing wingman I am. Don Pedro, a literal prince, will woo Hero in order to get her for Claudio. That is important. It will be important later. So I don't think I mentioned Don John is Don Pedro's brother, hence the Loki effect. So Don Pedro is the prince. He's very much the Thor. I like this sort of Marvel motif I've got going on with Butch too. But Don John is very much in Don Pedro's shadow. There's a sort of bastard nature of his birth, and so yeah, looked down upon quite a lot. He's quite a melancholy character, and so he finds pleasure in other people's misery. Yeah, that kind of character. So he hears that Don Pedro is going to woo Hero for Claudio and thinks this is a perfect time to get down to mischief. It's party time! Essentially, Leonardo throws a huge party in order to welcome these men. Of course, he's got a prince at his house. Of course he's going to have a party. So, this party is a masquerade. That'll be important. They're wearing masks. They can't tell who's who. There's a lot of that in this play. Anyway, so before the party, they're like setting up. Beatrice, Leonardo, and Hero are just kind of talking shit about people. Quite a lot about Benedict and Don John and how Beatrice is like going, well, one's too happy and merry, Benedict, one is too sad and melancholy. So what we're going to do is we're going to have half of Don John's tongue in Benedict's mouth, half Benedict's tongue in Don John's mouth, and it's a weird speech she gives at that point about going, let's make the perfect men out of these two. That all happens, and then she basically swears, nah, I'm going to be a maid forever. She's happy. Then more zingers get flown around. Leonardo talks to Hero about the possibility that Don Pedro's going to bring her aside for a little bit of wooing. So he's like, well, if the prince talks to you, if he comes up to you and goes, yeah, we need to talk, go with him. So the party then starts. And they all kind of couple off. The first couple is Don Pedro and Hero. Don Pedro's like, hey, will you walk with me? And Hero's like, yeah, let's go! Then it's Balthazar and Margaret. Margaret is one of Hero's waiting gentlewomen. And Balthazar is he's a musician. He sings later in the play. Just a humble musician. But Balthazar has got the hots for Margaret. And in this exchange, he's basically going, please, will you go out with me? And she goes, no. The next couple is Antonio, who is Leonardo's brother, and Ursula, who is the character I played, and therefore the best in the whole play. Apart from Beatrice, because I love Beatrice. But anyway, Ursula is amazing. Basically, Antonio is pretending he's not Antonio because he's got a mask on. So she basically looks at him. Their relationship is constantly changing depending on which show you watch. There's some that have them as husband and wife, some that have them as boyfriend and girlfriend, others are just lovers, some are affair. Because Ursula is a waiting gentlewoman, similar to Margaret, and Antonio is Leonardo's brother, there's a bit of that going on. They do have some form of romantic tension. They do know each other very well. What you gotta know about them is Ursula is amazing. So Antonio's like, it's not me, I'm wearing a mask! And Ursula then says one of the greatest lines I've had, and it makes me giggle to this day. I know you by the waggling of your head. Final couple is Beatrice and Benedict. And like all the men in the play in this scene, Benedict just goes, it's not me! So she knows it's Benedict. Benedict is pretending he's not Benedict, and thinks that Beatrice doesn't know it's him. That plan goes very, very well for Benedict, as you can understand. Beatrice, full on knowing it's him, lays into him about who Benedict is. Benedict's like, who's Benedict? And all of a sudden, so she's like, oh, he's the prince's jester. He's an idiot. No one likes him. Do. He'll but break a comparison or two on me, which, peradventure, not marked or laughed at. Strikes him into melancholy. Then there's a partridge wing saved for the fool will eat no supper that night. So everyone kind of goes off dancing after that bit, and Don John seizes his moment for mischief, goes up to Claudio, who at the moment is pretending he's Benedict, and like all the men so far, goes, he clearly doesn't know who I am. Don John does know it's Claudio. He's gone up to him for the purposes of causing mischief. Don John basically goes, are you Benedict? And Claudio goes, yeah, I am. The two of them, and I believe a couple of Don John's minions are there, and they basically go, hey, I hear, Benedict, that Don Pedro was gonna woo Hero for Claudio. However, I think he's just wooed Hero for himself. How do you feel about that, Benedict? Claudio responds to this very well. Not. He basically throws a big hissy fit that wouldn't be out of place in a rom-com. Before Claudio can go stalking off, Benedict catches him briefly to be like, hey, how are you doing? And Claudio is very, very upset by what he's just heard, and so he grabs his pint of Ben & Jerry's and DVD of Bridget Jones and goes stalking off the stage. The ice cream and DVD might not appear in the version that you watch. Benedict is a little bit confused about this, but never mind, because he's got to bitch about Beatrice a little bit. Basically does a whole speech about, like, why did she say those things about me? She's so mean, what I'm gonna do. That is when Don Pedro enters. Don Pedro the Prince, he enters, and they talk briefly about Claudio and what is he doing. He's just run off sad, very upsetting, and then Don Pedro just gets a stick and just pokes the hornet's nest and asks Benedict, hey, have you seen Beatrice? Like Benedict needs any excuse to bitch about Beatrice. He then does a huge rant, and that is when Beatrice walks in. Yay for timing! She walks in with the Count and Count Claudio, that is, and some other people, and Benedict is basically pissed off at her, doesn't want to see her face, even asks even asks Don Pedro, send me to Australia, send me as far away as you physically can on any kind of errand that you want, because I don't want to stay here anymore. He storms off. Beatrice basically just hangs out with Don Pedro a little bit, and we get to have a little bit of an insight about what Beatrice and Benedict's relationship was like. Come, lady, come. You've lost the heart of Signor Benedict. Indeed, my lord, he lent it me a while, and I gave him use for it. A double heart for his single one. Marry, once before he won it of me with false dice. Therefore your grace may say I have lost it. But never mind, because Claudio is here and he's quite upset. So Don Pedro quickly puts that to rest and goes, don't worry, I have done what I've said. I've wooed Hero for you. Ah! And Leonato's like, yeah, you can marry my daughter. And they get engaged and ready to be wed. If you think that's fast, let me introduce you to another of Shakespeare's work. I might be covering it later, if I get round to it. So, yeah, more on that later. In fact, Claudio actually is like, hey, let's get married tomorrow! And Leonato's like, oh, let's wait like a week or something. So, after they're engaged, everyone's really happy. Beatrice kind of is a bit like, oh, they're happy, but yeah, in fact, she called, I don't think I remember she calls herself sunburnt because she's past it or something. Anyway, Don Pedro takes it upon himself to find her a husband. She makes a bit of a joke, going, oh, can't I have one of your father's sons? Because he had great sons for husbands if a maid could get by them, I think, is a phrase she uses. So Don Pedro takes this as open door and proposes pretty much to her, and she goes, I didn't mean that to happen, and so says no and makes an kind of awkward exit. It's one of the most awkward exits I've seen in a Shakespeare play. Essentially she apologises profusely to Don Pedro, kind of is walking out, and Leonato goes, you will look to the things I told you. And Beatrice goes, yeah, okay. So it's really awkward. It's meant to be awkward, obviously. She's just turned down a prince. Leonato's probably going, ah! After the awkward AF exit, Don Pedro, instead of acting like a bit of a whiny boy, goes, well, I promised I'd get her a husband, so I'm gonna get her a husband. In fact, I'm going to get Beatrice and Benedict to fall in love with each other. This is when the whole of the group that are there just burst into fits of giggles. They think it's impossible. In fact, Don Pedro likens it to one of the labours of Hercules, but he is determined, and do not get in the way of a determined prince. So Don Pedro announces that he is going to make sure this happens, and he's got a plan. So they all exit, kind of whispering. That ends the party. Don John, he is about Claudio and Hero's engagement and decides, no one can be happy within my vicinity as Don John. I will make them regret it. And he forms a plan to stop their wedding. So, this part begins with two of the funniest scenes in all of Shakespeare. I love these scenes. The method that Don Pedro has chosen to get those two to fall in love with each other is basically to whisper, well not whisper, sort of talk within the vicinity of the other one while they're hiding, to basically go, have you heard? Benedick is in love with Beatrice, or Beatrice is in love with Benedick. I mean, Beatrice or Benedick hears it and goes, oh my god, they're in love with me? What? That's basically his plan. Spoiler alert, it works. Leonato, Don Pedro, Claudio and Balthazar the musician, they all saunter down to where Benedick is hiding, reading a book. They basically talk about Benedick and Beatrice within Benedick's vicinity. Basically go, Beatrice is so in love with Benedick, but he is just such a dick. He's such a bad person. He won't realise that she's in love with him, and that's why they're getting into fights all the time. And even at one point it's hinted that Beatrice might take her own life in love of Benedick, and that shocks Benedick. Quite rightly, shocks Benedick. And after they think, we've done enough, let's saunter off, Benedick comes forward and basically has this whole speech of him going, well, I kind of knew it. I kind of knew she was in love with me all this time. Basically going, yeah, sure, I won't be a bachelor all my life now. I'm going to settle down with Beatrice. This is going to be great. The others have formed a plan. They've already formed the plan. They've basically gone, oh, let's just test this theory. And they send Beatrice down to call him in for tea. So she goes down and goes, yeah, tea's ready, mate. Come on. And Benedick acts like a proper schoolgirl with a crush. And she's pretty creeped out by this, pretty confused about everything that's been going on. So she's like, yeah, sure. Especially as he won't come back with any sassy, like, earlier with the sass off, it was like bam, 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 bam. This time he's not throwing anything back, he's being quite kind to her, and she's like, warning, warning, something's wrong, it doesn't sit well with her. And she's pretty creeped out by this, pretty confused about everything that's been going on. So she's like, yeah, sure. Especially as he won't come back with any sassy, like, earlier with the sass off, it was like bam, 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 bam. This time he's not throwing anything back, he's being quite kind to her, and she's like, warning, warning, something's wrong, it doesn't sit well with her. And she's pretty creeped out by this, pretty confused about everything that's been going on. So she's like, yeah, sure. Especially as he won't come back with any sassy, like, earlier with the sass off, it was like bam, 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 bam. This time he's not throwing anything back, he's being quite kind to her, and she's like, warning, warning, something's wrong, it doesn't sit well with her. And she's pretty creeped out by this, pretty confused about everything that's been going on. So she's like, yeah, sure. Especially as he won't come back with any sassy, like, earlier with the sass off, it was like bam, 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 bam. This time he's not throwing anything back, he's being quite kind to her, and she's like, warning, warning, something's wrong, it doesn't sit well with her. And she's pretty creeped out by this, pretty confused about everything that's been going on. So she's like, yeah, sure. Especially as he won't come back with any sassy, like, earlier with the... There was a little bit of a discussion between Don Pedro, Claudio, Leonato and Benedick, where they're all kind of ribbing on Benedick, basically going, hey, you're in love with Beatrice. And he's like, I am not. Leave me alone. At one point he's just had enough and he decides, I'm out of here. Leonato, come with me. I've got something to talk to you about. Don Pedro and Claudio are left to their own devices to have a little bit of a titter about what they've just heard. And then Don John seizes his opportunity for mischief and walks in. Tells Claudio, I think Hero's cheating on you. and I can prove it. The proving that Don John does is he brings Don Pedro and Claudio to Hero's balcony. They look up and they see a woman who looks like Hero, who they believe is Hero, having sex with one of Don Pedro's men. Claudio takes this very well. No. He sees this and goes a little bit crazy, a little bit upset. Quite understandably, he thinks he's just seen his fiancée, who's over the head over heels in love with, having sex with another guy the night before their wedding. He's gone a little bit off the deep end, and Don John is going, yes, my plan is coming together. I don't know why I said it like that. Cut to the silliest police department on planet Earth. There's Dugbury and there's Verges. These two are kind of acting like a pantomime in the middle of a Shakespeare play. Dugbury and Verges, they are training new recruits and teaching them about being vigilant. Dogbury is a character who thinks he's a lot cleverer than he is. He constantly messes up his words, his phrases, and things like that. That's where a lot of the humour comes from. Verges is his right-hand man. And Verges basically thinks Dogbury is amazing. He is the best. And Dogbury's like, I know I'm the best. I am the best. And these two new recruits set up for their night watch. I just think Brooklyn Nine-Nine there. But anyway, they set up being the night boys, and they overhear a little bit of a discussion. The discussion is Don John's man basically bragging about having sex with Margaret, Hero's gentlewoman, and screaming out the name of Hero so that Claudio and Don Pedro could hear and think he was having sex with Hero. And so when they come to their wedding tomorrow morning, Claudio's going to publicly dishonour her and will not marry her. The two constables, I kind of get, they burst forth and go, ah, no you don't, we've got you, and they arrest them. It's the wedding day! It's the morning of when Hero is getting ready with Margaret and Beatrice. Hero and Margaret kind of do a similar thing to Don Pedro and Claudio have done earlier. They kind of rib on Beatrice about being in love with Benedict. They tease her quite a lot. Not overtly, they're a bit more subtle, as women generally are at these sort of matters. So whereas Don Pedro and Claudio are going, ah, you're in love with Beatrice, you're in love with Beatrice, Hero and Margaret keep talking about this plant Carduus benedictus. Yeah, smart one, girls. But that is when Ursula bursts in going, guys, everyone's ready for the wedding. Come on, let's go! Elsewhere, Dogbury and Verges have heard from the two constables what has happened last night, and they go and inform Leonato. But they don't, because they are so idiotic, they can't really get the words across. They're just being a bit pompous. They're like, oh, yeah, we managed to arrest these two felons. And Leonato, quite rightly, is going, my daughter's wedding is in like two minutes. I need to go. And they don't actually get out the words, the wedding is not going to happen because Claudio has been led to believe that Hero's cheated on him. They don't actually tell Leonato, which would have been a lovely thing to have happened. So shame on Dogbury and Verges. Also shame on Leonato. Leonato should probably have heard what they were going to say. The wedding starts. It turns out Claudio is a very respectable, cool-headed man that will pull Hero aside and inform her one-on-one. Look, this is what I saw, please can you, and gives her the adequate and respected her time so that she comes back going, no, that wasn't me. Ah. Do you believe that? No. That's because that's not what he does. Claudio, being prima drama queen, she walks up the aisle and when he goes, has anyone got any objections? Claudio goes, you got anything, Hero? And Hero's like, what do you mean? And Claudio goes off on one. He declares in front of the whole of the church all Hero's family and friends, basically calls her a whore, tells Leonato, no, not gonna marry her. In fact, says, there, Leonato, take her back again. Give not this rotten orange to your friend. She is but the sign and semblance of our honour. Behold, like a maid, how she blushes there. Oh, what authority and show of truth can cunning sin cover itself withal? Comes not that blood as modest evidence to witness simple virtue? Would you not swear all that see her that she were a maid by these exterior shows? But she is none. She knows the heat of a luxurious bed. Her blush is guiltness, not modesty. What a drama queen. Hero, like any good woman accused of such a heinous crime, faints and collapses to the floor, and that is when Claudio and Don Pedro leave her for dead. Literally. They walk out, not caring if she lives or dies. Yeah. Claudio, what a catch. Beatrice, the friar who was going to marry them, Leonato and Benedict are all fussing over Hero because she's just collapsed and they think, oh my god, is she dead? Beatrice in particular is distraught at all of this. Beatrice and Hero, they're cousins, but they're also best friends. And she actually is her bedfellow. Essentially, I mean, they have slept in the same room, so they know. If you get what I mean, Beatrice would know if Hero was doing the do with another gentleman. So she's a bit confused about all of this. Leonato is very, very stressed at all of this. At one point is just let her die, because then her shame will die with her. Father of the Year. Hero does not in fact die. She comes to. The friar and Beatrice are making sure that she's alright. And the friar quite calmly asks for her side of the story, and she's like, no, I haven't slept with anyone else, trust me. And Leonato is like, well, the prince and Claudio have just said that you slept with someone else, and I trust them more than my own daughter, so just die already. Benedict is trying to be bodyguard at the moment and try and stop Leonato from attacking his own daughter. Once the friar kind of talks Leonato off the ledge of killing his own daughter, forms a plan to try and prove Hero's innocence. The plan is to let everyone, aside from the ones in the room, believe Hero is actually dead. Because fake deaths in Shakespeare tend to work out all the time. That is when everyone kind of calms down, settles on that plan, and they all leave. Apart from Beatrice. Beatrice is really upset about everything. As I said, she's just watched her best friend of all time be publicly humiliated, and the guy of her dreams say, you've been sleeping with someone else, walk off, leave her for dead, and her own father, her uncle, basically say, I don't care if she lives or dies. She is really, really upset. She's crying. Benedict kind of hovers at the exit and then comes in, and it's a really sweet romantic scene between the two of them, where they end up actually professing their love to each other. A lot of heightened emotions in that, and Benedict basically goes, tell me how I can prove my love for you. And Beatrice, in a calm, why do I even bother? She goes, kill Claudio. And to Benedict, Claudio was his best friend. So he immediately responds with, no, I'm not going to do it. Which is a fair response, let's be honest. But Beatrice kicks off on one because she now sees Claudio as her enemy. Claudio has publicly humiliated Hero, and so Beatrice wants him dead. In fact, she actually makes a whole point about what she would do if she was a man, including eat his heart in the marketplace. Oh, that I were a man for his sake. Or that I had any friend would be a man for my sake. But manhood is melted into curtsies, valour into compliment, and men are only turned into tongue, and trim ones too. He is now as valiant as Hercules, that only tells a lie and swears it. I cannot be a man with wishing, therefore I shall die a woman with grieving. After this, Benedict sees she's got a point. Claudio's being a bit of a dick, so challenges Claudio to a duel. Back to the crack police unit known as Dogberry and Verges. They are in front of a judge of sorts with with Don John's men. The men are proved guilty, and in fact the judge reveals to Dogberry and Verges that the wedding didn't go through this morning because of what you've literally just found out about. And then we cut to Leonato and Antonio trying to have a go at Don Pedro and Claudio. Leonato and Antonio are trying to keep the pretense that Hero is still dead. Is dead. And Don Pedro and Claudio are a bit like, well, she deserves it. She slept with another man. And Leonato and Antonio go off the rails at them, basically throwing fists, that sort of stuff. They storm off, and that's when Benedict comes in. Don Pedro and Claudio still think that Benedict is one of their bestest friends, so they greet him as such and be like, hey, it's Benedict! Woo! Let's party! And Benedict is like, I am no mood for this. Claudio, I challenge you to a duel. Claudio initially thinks that he's kidding until he says, you are a villain. I jest not. I will make it good how you dare with what you dare and when you dare. Do me right, or I will protest your cowardice. You have killed a sweet lady, and her death shall fall heavy on you. Let me hear from you. Hashtag Team Hero. Don Pedro and Claudio, after Benedict leaves, after saying that, they're a bit shaken up. They don't really know what to think. And initially, they think that Benedict is just on Hero's side because of Beatrice. They think, oh, he's just saying that because he's in love with Beatrice. There's some truth in that. This is when Verges and Dogberry walk into the scene. They basically reveal to Don Pedro and Claudio that in fact they were deceived. Hero's innocent. And that is when it full on hits Claudio and he feels awful for everything that's happened. And that is when Leonato walks back on with Antonio, his brother. A brief conversation, and Claudio and Don Pedro basically say sorry to Leonato, and Leonato's like, well, fat lot of good that does me. My daughter's dead because of you. And that is when Claudio agrees to marry Leonato's niece, not Beatrice. Making that clear in order to make things right. Some of you will already know where this goes from. That doesn't make sense. Never mind. Claudio also agrees to go to Hero's tomb and sing a love ballad to the tomb of Hero for all the night. Meanwhile, also in the realm of love songs, Benedict is trying to channel his inner Lin-Manuel Miranda and write a gorgeous love song for Beatrice. The actual words of the play, he's trying to find rhymes for silly things, because all love songs should rhyme. So he's trying to compose a love song, and that is when Beatrice walks in. Then they have a really, really sweet moment. It's basically like a date. They're a little bit of friendly back and forth this time instead of they're really sassy, I'm going to be horrible to you. They're being quite sweet, and Benedict actually asks how Hero is, and then asks how she is. After this really, really sweet thing, which is basically like a date, Ursula comes barging in. It basically says to Beatrice and Benedict that Hero has been proven innocent. Claudio and Don Pedro were misled, but it's all alright. So, come on down, you need to leave your date because we've got more important stuff to do. As was mentioned before, Claudio has promised to marry Leonato's niece, and when that comes, there are 4 women in veils. They all walk down, and Claudio's like, well, which one of these am I supposed to marry? And then Leonato's like, this one. pulls the woman forward. Once Claudio promises to marry her in front of all the witnesses, he promises he will go through and he will marry her, not just walk her to the altar and publicly humiliate her like he did last time. The veil comes off and it's Hero. You probably saw that coming, didn't you? Claudio and Don Pedro, I should say, are shocked because they were like, no, but you're dead. And Hero basically gets out of dodge by saying, yes, one hero died, but one lived. Basically like saying she's a phoenix and she rose from the ashes of her publicly humiliation, and it's all fine now because they're gonna get married. Way! They're together. Ah! Benedict then takes his cue. Is all like, oh, which one of the girls is Beatrice? And Beatrice is like, well, that's me, taking off her veil. And Benedict basically proposes. And Beatrice is like, because she realises all of a sudden she's in front of a large group of people. It's no longer just him and her testing the waters. It's him going, will you marry me? And her going, no, don't think I will, thanks. Benedict is a bit confused for a second and basically says, don't you love me? And she goes, no, but don't you love me? And he goes, no, because I thought you loved me, that's why I loved you. And Beatrice is like, well, no, because they said you were really sick for me. And Benedict is like, well, they said you might kill yourself for me. And it all gets revealed, so they kind of twig that the others have had a hand in it, but the others are kind of going, no, but you are actually in love, you're not messing around, you are genuinely in love. And that is when Claudio comes forward with a love poem from Benedict to Beatrice, and that is when Hero comes forward with a likewise from Beatrice about Benedict. They read their poems for themselves and goes, well, our hands against our hearts, I believe is the line they say. So Beatrice and Benedict do get married. There's a little bit of teasing from the other boys going, hey, yeah, you said you were never going to get married. And Benedict is like, hey, I've changed my mind. And then they get ready to party, but not just yet. Because news comes in about the Loki of the situation. Don John is announced he's fled from Messina because he's heard about everything that's gone down. And then it gets revealed that he's been brought back to Messina by armed guards. He's been arrested. Leonardo is all ready to sort this out right now, but Benedict is like, let's party first. I've just been married. Let's, enjoy it a little bit. So the play ends with a big shindig. That is the end of Much Ado About Nothing. I love this play. I hope that comes across. It is really, really funny. There are a couple of productions out there that you can see online. I do recommend, if you can find the David Tennant, Catherine Tate version. I got to see it. I was 5th row, and I got a wink from David Tennant. For a Doctor Who fan like me, one of the greatest moments of my life. I've been winked at by 3 actors who've played the Doctor. That is something I keep track of. Yes, I am weird. So if you've got any particular play that you would like me to do Shakespeare Simplified for, please let me know. If you've got one that you're studying, or you really just want to know what the heck goes on in that play, please let me know. And hashtag share your Shakespeare. Happy birthday, Will!